Hello, my name is Frank Peters, and I'm here today with Dr. Sushil Bhardwaj, who wrote an essay in the book The Big Casino. And we're going to speak about some of the remarkable patients that he met and some of the lessons that he drew from that. Welcome, Dr. Bhardwaj.
Thank you.
It's nice to have you here.
Thank you.
Dr. Bhardwaj, you told me about the fact that one of your coworkers approached you for you to be her treating oncologist. Can you tell me a bit more about what that is, what it is like, what it was like for you to be asked to treat a coworker, a colleague, a friend?
So this young lady, I'd known her from the first time I ever joined the oncology program at the hospital where I trained in New York. And so I was very young when I joined there. I was 26, and she was an oncology nurse. And so she was probably one of the first few people I met at that hospital. And she was the one, I think, who was instrumental in me living where I live now, because she lived there, and I was trying to figure out where we were going to move. My son had just been born. He was a year old. The apartment was getting very small. So we moved to the suburb of New York City where she lived, and which was more affordable at the time. And I got to know her. I got to know her husband. I was actually involved in helping them adopt a young daughter from Colombia. And so I knew them well. And she had had breast cancer in 1974 and then a second breast cancer in 1984. And then she developed this very aggressive form of sarcoma. And she came to me in 1990 one day, and she had been diagnosed, and she said, "I want you to be my oncologist." And it was a kind of a heart-wrenching decision for me, because I knew them as friends, I knew them personally, and yet I wasn't sure that I'd be able to maintain my professional distance.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized I was being very selfish, if you will, in terms of worrying about how I would feel, how I would react to her illness, and not really being concerned about what she needed and what she wanted. So I did become a physician, and she had a good response to the initial rounds of chemotherapy and went into remission. And then the cancer came back, and we tried other chemotherapy, and she responded, and then things got worse, and we tried other things. And then we came to a point where it was evident that our treatments weren't working, and she was getting sicker. And we talked about home hospice, and she was being managed at home on hospice. And I received a call late one night from her husband, who told me that he thought her time was near. So they lived not too far from where I lived, and I went over, and I walked into the room, and she was under the influence of some of the painkillers, the narcotic analgesics, and so, but she still recognized me. She smiled. And we had a good conversation. She thanked me for being her doctor all those years, for the 3 years that she'd had, watched her daughter grow up. And then she died very peacefully that night. And I was there, and I sat there with her husband. Their daughter was sleeping in another part of the house. And I sat there with him while we waited till the dawn and the chill of the early morning, mm-hmm. when arrangements could be made with the funeral home. Yeah. But that experience kind of stayed with me. It was very difficult being there, and yet at the same time an uplifting experience in terms of having witnessed how my care of her had such an impact on her life, and that yes. It really affected her so much, and that she was able to do those things in those 3 years. Yes. Watch her young daughter grow.
Would you say this is an example, one of the examples where you would ask yourself, why did I become an oncologist?
Absolutely. I struggled with it initially, and then when there were dark days when she wasn't doing well, it was very difficult trying to be the oncologist, managing the situation, and yet the human being who was feeling all those feelings of despair and sadness, yeah. Which I didn't want to show to her, and yet offer her encouragement. So there's always that tussle going on in one's head, yeah. As one approaches a patient, certainly when I approach a patient.